Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello, my name is Dr. Himanshu Tyagi. I am teaching this course titled Heat and Mass Transfer, and till now we have looked at conduction, we have completed, we have looked at fundamentals of convection as well as for external flows. Today we will start convection for internal flows. So today will be lecture number 18, and this will be the first part for forced convection in internal flows. Before we start, let us do a quick recap of what we had done yesterday, which was lecture number 17. So, we had looked at the differences in laminar and turbulent flows and explained with the help of these figures given over here, and then based on this analysis we had looked at the fluctuations which are observed in turbulent flow but are not present in laminar flow. So, these fluctuations lead to a fluctuating component of any parameter that we are studying. So, we started off with the x direction velocity, it could also be y direction velocity, it can also be fluctuations in temperature, pressure as well as density. And what this leads to in our nature is very interesting phenomena, which is the additional shear stress is observed, which is known as the Reynolds stress. So, I am highlighting all these things with orange color, also known as turbulent stress. So, what is the net effect over here is that the apparent viscosity of the fluid experiences a rise, because there is the viscosity of the fluid, but there is an additional turbulent viscosity component which comes in. And this we have observed when we are trying to do some rigorous mixing of some particular material inside the fluid. For example, I am trying to mix sugar in water or salt in water. The amount of turbulence that I generate higher and higher, it enhances the amount of mixing significantly. So, that is mass transfer over here. It also enhances momentum transfer, and then we looked with the help of these three rapidly developing turbulence levels from 0 to low to medium to high, that these fluctuations kind of increase. And then we have seen that one of the viscosity is the fluid property that we are familiar with, and the additional viscosity is the flow property. So, I can kind of tune it. If the flow turbulence is very low, then the mu t value is 0. If that value increases the turbulence value, then this mu t also increases. So, engineers are glad to have that thing, so we can control it. I think one more thing we had written over here, yeah, it is not given. We had also looked at the increase in thermal conductivity as well. So, K is the thermal conductivity of a material. It experiences an increase in the form of this particular term over here. So, the turbulent thermal conductivity comes into play. So, this we have also looked at in yesterday's lecture. Then we went into lot of detail and looked into the forced convection for external flows. So, these are all the type of flow geometries that I had drawn yesterday. It could be flow over a flat plate, flow over a streamlined body or a bluff body like a sphere or cylinder. So, by external flow we are meaning that the body that we are interested in, whether it is the flat plate or a streamlined body, it could be a ball or a cylinder or a bat, that object is throughout surrounded by the fluid and the flow. So, it is submerged inside over there. The fluid can be liquid like water, it can be a vapor like or a gas like air as well. Then we looked at the effects of drag coefficient, and we had looked at their primarily two components. One is the friction component and the other one is the pressure component. Then we developed these relations for flat plate, and we looked at the average values of Cf for both laminar as well as the turbulent case. So, Cf, if we remember, is coefficient of friction, and similar analysis we did for heat transfer coefficient as well. So, we discussed the heat transfer coefficient for laminar and the turbulent case. So, instead of H we looked at Nusselt number over here, and H variation we have actually seen graphically that it suddenly increases from at x equals to 0, drastic drop is there, then in the transition it goes up again, and then in the turbulent region with distance it again goes down. Then we looked at very interesting phenomena of flow past some bluff bodies such as spheres and cylinders. And we looked at the issue of why do golf balls have dimples on them. So, for this we have used some animations to look at the flow regimes starting from very low Reynolds number for spheres, and then we moved on to large Reynolds number. So, as we have seen yesterday, when Reynolds number is low, the flow remains streamlined. Then we increase the Reynolds number, then some recirculating flow is obtained over here. So, these are kind of the vortex rings which are seen, and these are shown very clearly in this particular photograph. So, very beautiful photograph is given over here. Then at higher Reynolds number, these vortex rings develop into vortex loops, and these are horseshoe shape loops. That is what I had explained yesterday. And again, very nice photographs are given, and this is an animation of the same Reynolds number. So, we can see the top view as well as the side view. So, these are all things we have covered in last lecture. Then we looked at the interesting phenomena of the critical Reynolds number, which is about 2 into 10 power 5, that how does the wake or the laminar boundary layer become turbulent boundary layer, and the size of this particular wake, here it was very large and here it has become relatively small. So, this reduction in wake leads to sudden dip in the drag coefficient, which is kind of like the non-dimensionalized form of the drag force given by this expression over here. So, we have seen both the case of spheres as well as for cylinders, there is a sudden decrease in the drag coefficient, and this is something that phenomena is used in order to make the golf ball very rough. The surface is put with lot of dimples, so that there is a drastic reduction in drag coefficient at the same Reynolds number. So, instead of having the golf ball, if it were smooth, it would have a drag coefficient value equivalent to A, which is kind of high. If you make it very rough, then the value becomes more than half of that. So, the drag coefficient goes down, which means the drag force goes down. So, if I hit two balls with the same effort, both will leave the stick with the same velocity, but the one which experiences less drag will travel further, the one which experiences more drag will travel to a shorter distance. And I think we concluded this particular section by looking at various Nusselt number correlations for cylinders of different type of cross section. So, it could be a circular cross section over here, sphere cross section, or hexagon, or even ellipse over here. And in all these cases, the beautiful thing is that Nusselt number takes this very simplistic form, where only the C, M and N coefficients we have to figure out with the help of this table, and it is obtained in any standard textbook on heat transfer. So, I think with that we have looked at what we looked last time. We will continue this discussion today. So, we are still on forced convection, but what we are going to do is we will look at the second part of the forced convection aspect, where instead of the fluid surrounding the object that we are interested in, it is the object which is surrounding the fluid that we are studying. So, instead of having external flow, we will have now internal flow. And there are very good examples of internal flows all around us. In all our homes, we usually have piped water coming in. In metropolitan cities now, even the gas, the LPG gas is coming through pipe, or it could be CNG, the pressurized natural gas. In our body also we have the blood circulatory system, and I am taking breath after every few seconds. So, all those things are traveling in pipes and ducts through arteries and veins. So, those are all examples of internal flows. So, wherever the flow is actually being surrounded by a solid surface, we consider it to be an internal flow. So, what we are going to look at is, in internal flow, if some sort of a heating is taking place, I am providing some heat over here, what will happen to the temperature difference of this particular fluid? So, that is the analysis that we will start with. So, in a very simple case, let us take a case from our daily life. Let us say we are in North India in extreme winter temperature, and usually the water that I get is about 10 degrees or even below that, because the temperature of the ambient is very low. So, I get very cold water, I do not want to take bath in very cold water. So, I come up with a very simplistic design of a geyser, which is simply a long copper pipe in which I enter. So, I will say this is the inlet temperature of the water, which is equal to TW, which is equal to 10 degrees, and I want to heat it in such a way that the outlet temperature is much larger. Let us say it becomes 40 degrees or 50 degrees. So, I have a tube, a long tube or a long pipe in which water or any other fluid enters from the left hand side, and I want to heat this whole tube. I will figure out how I am going to heat it with the ultimate aim that I want to achieve hot fluid at the outlet. So, this is what I have shown in the schematic over here. So, if in a very simple design I can just purchase some resistance, put it all across this copper tube and just pass some current through it. So, if some current I goes over here and this whole wire have a resistance R, the power which is generated over here, I will write it capital P, is equivalent to I square R amount of watts. And if I do some sort of a insulation all around over here, so I am putting certain amount of insulation all around the pipe as well as the electrical wire. So, I have insulated this whole thing. So, then all this Q dot, this is also in terms of Q dot, all that heat whichever I am providing is actually going to the fluid. So, what I have drawn over here is a very simplistic kind of a geyser. So, it is one of the cheapest way in which we can have it, but instead of having electrical heating, I can also have some sort of a combustion. I can burn some gas or some wood or some other combustible material in order to generate heat, and if that pipe is present above that particular flame, then the whole pipe is being uniformly heated, which means in a very simple way I can write the equation for this particular Q dot. So, this whole Q dot I hope the students have understood. I have figured it out equivalent to I square R, and this whole thing is in watts, and I can also convert it in this particular form, that it is equivalent to the increase in the internal energy of the fluid. So, if I write this subscript as TE, T exit, and the TI was T inlet, then maybe I can write it in this form. So, this is the simple way in which we are going to study this particular concept, but we are going to look at it in more details, which means this is a thermodynamic way that I have approached this particular problem. I figured out the amount of heat that we are giving in terms of the increase in temperature. Can we also write the whole thing in terms of heat transfer equation? For instance, can I write it in such a way that I am talking in terms of convective heat transfer multiplied by the surface area of this particular cylinder multiplied by some delta T should come over here. So, now I am converting this thermodynamic quantity into a convective heat transfer problem. So, I am writing it as convective heat transfer problem. Convective heat transfer problem. So, I may ask a question to the students that what is going to be the value of delta T in this particular problem over here. So, this is a problem for a simple geyser. What is going to be the value of delta T? That is my first question. Second question, what is going to be the value of H? So, I will ask AS is very easy. This area AS I can just write, it is pi d into L. So, if this diameter of the cylinder was d, the length of the cylinder was L, then AS is very easy to calculate. But I want to ask students about the value of H, the value of delta T. So, first question is what is the value of H, what is the value of delta T. Then more detailed question I will ask is H a function of X? Is delta T going to be a function of X? So, these are the type of details that we will start looking at now, and we will study this whole chapter under two different type of regimes. In the first regime, that I will call as case 1, we will heat or cool a pipe in such a way that the heat flux is constant. So, Q dot S is going to be constant. And in case 2, this is another way we can study this particular problem. Here we are going to assume that the surface temperature of the pipe is going to be constant. So, I will give examples of both of them in just a few minutes, and then we will try and figure out how do we formally look at this whole. So, let us consider case 1, where we are considering that the heat flux that we are providing to this pipe is constant. So, what I am trying to do over here is that I am going to uniformly heat this particular pipe like I was doing on the previous slide, where I had wrapped the electrical wire around it. And what I am, the parameters that I am knowing, I know the mass flow rate of the fluid entering the pipe, I know the inlet temperature, and I want to figure out what is going to be the exit temperature. The diameter of the pipe is known to me, and the length of the pipe is also known to me. So, the first thing that I will do is, with the help of students, what I am going to do is I am going to figure out how is going to be the temperature of this particular fluid behave with X, which means I am trying to figure out if the inlet temperature is, let us say, 10 degrees and the exit temperature is, for instance, 50 degrees, and this is the center line point over here. If I am providing uniform heating, so this is something we will figure out very soon. So, if my inlet temperature is Ti, which is 10 degrees over here, and my exit temperature is Te, which is 50 degrees over here, and this is my length. So, I am going to mark a dot over here. So, what we are going to see is that we will figure out that there will be a linear increase in temperature, and this we can figure out in this way, that as soon as the fluid enters, at each centimeter increase of the length, let us say the whole pipe length is 10 centimeters. So, each centimeter means that it will have 10 intervals of 1 centimeter each. So, I am just discretizing the whole pipe into 10 sections. So, in the first section it will experience certain amount of heating, because it is flowing with uniform velocity. In all of these sections it will experience same amount of uniform heating. So, let us say in the first section, when the fluid enters at 10 degrees, it comes out at 11. So, which means 1 degree temperature rise is there. So, in the second section also 1 degree will be there, third also 1 degree. So, it will be kind of a linear slope. That is what we have drawn over here. So, this I am going to write is mean temperature of the fluid as a function of x, because we can clearly see it is changing with x, and it has to change because we are giving it continuously energy, and all that energy has to go into internal energy. Another thing that I will draw over here is, so let me first draw and then ask the question, that let us say I draw this another curve over here. So, this is again a straight line that I am drawing, straight line, and it is parallel to my previous line, and this will be the surface temperature of the pipe, which means the black one is the mean temperature of the fluid. So, in a little while I will define what is mean. So, I will just figure out that this is this particular temperature. Let us say this is Tm at the half distance, so L by 2, and I will make a purple dot on top of it. Let me say this is the copper pipe temperature over here. So, this I will call as the surface temperature Ts, and because this dot is at the half distance length, so I am saying this is at x equals to L by 2. So, this is the value of L over here. What I am talking about is this mid plane over here, L by 2. So, I will make a dotted line over here. I can even put some numbers over here. If my inlet temperature was 10 degree of the fluid, outlet temperature is 50 degree, then I can exactly calculate that at the midpoint the temperature is going to be 30 degree, which is simply 10 plus 50 divided by 2. The thing which is unknown right now is this particular line. How does the value of Ts change? But are students convinced that Ts is going to change? So, even inside the copper wire, copper pipe, so it's, let us say length is 1 meter length of the copper pipe, then over there the value of the surface temperature is also increasing with distance. And why is there a gap between the surface temperature and delta and Tm? If I note this gap as delta T, and I write that this delta T is equal to Ts minus Tm at any given value of x. I think this delta T is because of convection, because we have been studying in all the forced convection examples. If I can draw on the right hand side over here, if the surface temperature is Ts and the fluid which is flowing here is T infinity. There has to be a delta T. So, in this case Ts is greater than T infinity. So, I can calculate the value of H. I can write the expression like this, which means can I write the same expression over here? So, the answer is exactly, we can do that. I can write Qs, which is heat flux multiplied by area. So, this whole thing comes out in watts, and this is equivalent to the convective heat transfer coefficient multiplied by the surface area of this particular pipe multiplied by delta T, and this delta T is same as this thing over here. The units for this thing is in watts. So, now we are slowly starting to see that when a fluid is flowing in a pipe or a tube, when we are heating it with length, its temperature is going to rise, and this is something we have always expected, that is how the fluid temperature should go from 10 degree to 50 degree. Now, another way can I also define this particular value from thermodynamics. I know the mass flow rate of the fluid, I know its specific heat, and if I know the expression for the exit temperature and the inlet temperature, I can just write that this is Te minus Ti. So, both these quantities actually turn out to be equal. So, this thing is equal to this thing over here, and this will give us lot of knowledge about delta T, about H also, and other parameters as well. So, there are a lot of things that we will study. So, this is a simplistic case that I have just shown in the beginning of this particular chapter. This particular case 1 we will study in lot of detail later on, and what other things that we will learn that we do not know over here. For instance, I do not know the value of H. So, what are the unknowns for me? The first unknown is what is the value of H. Second unknown is what is the value of delta T. How will Tm vary with X? Tm will vary with X, this we have seen over here. How will it vary? Linearly or other parameter, and then similarly, how will Tx vary with X? What will be the Nusselt number for this particular case? What will be the, if I know the inlet temperature, what will be the exit temperature? And one very important parameter that we have not looked at right now, inside this particular pipe, what will be the velocity profile? So, if I put some coordinates on my diagram back over here, so I will say this is the r direction and this is the x direction. What is the value of urx? And more importantly, what is the value of the fluid temperature, Trx? So, these are all the unknowns that we have to figure out. Then one last thing which we have not even talked about right now, what will be the effect of the entrance region? So, we will define there is something called the entrance region of the pipe where the flow is not fully developed. So, in that entrance region the flow behaves slightly different, and then once it becomes fully developed, then the velocity profile, temperature profile, it becomes much more easier to calculate and much more simple. So, these are all the things that we will study in this particular chapter, but do not be afraid of all these question marks I have put over here. It will come out very simply just by looking at these two diagrams over here. So, we will just look at the flow which is taking place inside the tube. We will look at the temperature profile. So, I will put a star here and star here, and with the help of equations as simple as these, we will try and figure out how do we solve for all this particular case. So, I hope everybody is understanding in which direction we are going. Now, we have looked at case 1. Very quickly we will look at case 2 also. So, what was case 2? So, here we are keeping the surface temperature as constant. So, I will again draw the same pipe over here. The diameter is d, length is L. I can put the coordinate system over here. So, this is x direction, this is r direction. The inlet temperature of the fluid is known to me. Let us say same value I am taking. This time, how am I heating this pipe? Again I am heating the pipe because the fluid is cold, but I am heating it in such a way that throughout the temperature is constant. Let me assume a value over here 80 degrees. And it is the same problem as earlier, that I want to take water in order to take bath from 10 degrees, I want to increase it to 50 degrees. You can see the same problem on previous slide. We have taken the fluid from 10 degree, heated it to 50 degree. The way we have heated is wrapped some electrical resistance around it. So, electrical resistance will give I square R heating. If it is wrapped around very uniformly, then the whole length at each section it will give uniform heating. On the other hand, I can also heat it in different way. How do I make, for having constant heat flux, one of the ways is electrical heating. In order to achieve constant surface temperature, can students think that in what way in real life are there surfaces whose temperature always remains same? And I can answer it in a very simple way. In all our kitchen, we are experiencing sometimes the boiling is taking place when we are making tea and coffee. So, whenever boiling is taking place, before it the inner temperature of the pan can be less because water has not reached 100 degree. But once boiling starts, so until the water disappears, that particular surface very close to 100 we are having temperature. So, the trick here is having some phase change taking place. So, if boiling is taking place, condensation is taking place, then we can figure out the precise temperature. So, if steam is condensing on top of this particular pipe, so then I will modify the temperature over here. Let me not make it 80 degree, I will make it 100 degree. So, steam condenses at 100 degree when the pressure is 1 atmosphere. So, if we have that condensation taking place on top of the copper tube, so the whole tube, the starting part, middle part, end part, throughout the temperature will be 100 degree on the outside because there the steam is condensing, which means I can draw the temperature profile in this case also. So, again the length is L, I will put L over here. Steam condensing temperature Ts is 100 degree. So, that remains constant. So, I have to put a straight line over here. What is the inlet temperature? 10 degrees. So, I have to put here T inlet is 10 degree. In middle somewhere it will be T exit is 50 degree. Now, 50 degree will be here, 10 degree is here. Now, the question which I will ask students is, how will the temperature profile here look like? Will it be like this, straight line? Will it be curved like this? So, this is curve 1, this is curve 2, or it will look like this, curve 3. So, we will learn in this particular chapter that always it will be like curve 3. So, these two I will cancel out. So, this is the correct way in which it will go. Initially, the temperature of the fluid will increase very fast. So, this I am showing with the arrow over here, which means by the time it crosses this middle point. So, in the previous example, in middle point, what was the temperature? You remember? It was 30 degrees because we have just taken arithmetic mean, because in linear line I can take arithmetic mean 50 plus 10 divided by 230. Here it will not be 30, it will, if it was 30, the midpoint it would be somewhere over here, 30 should be here, but here it will be, temperature will be much higher. So, if I can just put some number over here, maybe it will be 40 degree. I am just putting some imaginary numbers, I have not done that calculation yet, but we will figure out now. This is a very interesting thing, that instead of looking at the subjective numbers or qualitative figuring it out, can we put exact precise number? And the answer is yes. That is what we will learn in this particular chapter. So, here again we will write same equations and as in the last case. So, can I write both these equations over here? So, answer is yes. I will write the same equation over here. This is m dot Cp Te minus Ti. So, this thing is general, it will be always true whatever type of heating we are having. Now, the interesting part comes, how will I write this particular thing? And how will I define this delta T? This delta T is essentially some difference between the surface temperature and the fluid mean temperature. In the earlier case, the fluid mean temperature and the surface temperature both were increasing. So, we have a parallel line. So, delta T is very easy to find. Throughout the delta T is constant, isn't it? Here, if I ask students, they will say, sir, delta T is much greater here, little less over here and very less over here. So, we will also figure out, so these are the questions that we will figure out, how to define delta T in this case number 2, because it was very easy to define in case number 1. How do we find exit temperature? Next question. How do we find the value of H? How do we find temperature of the fluid as a function of X? because this curve that we are seeing over here, it kind of a very unique curve, it is not a linear curve. So, how does it change with x? So, these are very interesting questions. Now, what is the value of Nusselt number over here? So, all these questions we have asked on the previous slide, all these unknowns, we will have to ask the same thing over here. How will velocity vary with the function of radius, radial direction and the x direction? How will temperature vary over here, and what will be the effect of the entrance region? Now, I have just given the introduction for this particular chapter with lot of information, and I think concept is clear in the mind of students now. Now, let us start it formally from the very basics, and now we will try and see when pipe flow takes place. First question we will ask is, what is the velocity profile inside the pipe, whether we are heating or not, because when the flow is laminar, it will have a particular velocity profile. Once we start heating it, what is the temperature profile inside the pipe, how much is the pressure drop, how much is the heat transfer coefficient. Then we will start applying some boundary conditions and solve for each of these in an exact form. So, I hope the future plan is clear to the students. In the next 2 or 3 lectures, this is what we plan to do. So, we will start with the very basics first. So, the first basic question we will ask is, if laminar flow is taking in pipe, what is the value of the average velocity? Which means, let us look at the flow taking place in this particular pipe. If it is fully developed flow, then we know that parabolic profile is obtained. This we have studied in fluid mechanics course, all of us. So, this is the x axis, this is the r axis over here. So, let me put arrows. So, this what I am drawing in a parabolic profile is known as the velocity profile. So, I am drawing the velocity profile over here, and everyone can see this blue curve looks like a parabola. Let me put the radius value over here. So, instead of diameter, I am going to call it twice of radius. So, we can figure out this whole diameter is 2r0. So, the radius of this pipe is r0. This particular velocity profile I will represent as u as a function of r, and we are considering the fully developed laminar flow. And why do we want to calculate this average velocity is that in reality it will have a parabolic profile like this. But for engineers, it would have been very easy for calculations if the same thing which I am drawing over here would have been slightly different, and instead of being like a parabolic profile over here, if it was straight profile like this. Why would it be easier? Because then here I will just write u r is a single value v average. Why? Because this arrow length here represents the average velocity. For here I have to write slightly complicated function. So, it will become V max multiplied by 1 minus r square divided by r naught square, where this capital R naught is the radius of this particular pipe. So, engineers want to keep things simple. So, they want to figure out, is there a way to convert this particular thing over here, keeping one thing constant. And what is that thing constant? Mass flow rate I cannot change. If the mass flow rate is m over here, I cannot make it 2m or m by 2 over here, it has to be same. Which means what I am trying to figure out over here is that in the same profile over here, if I can show that if this point represents V max, then what is my V average velocity over here? So, how do I do it? So, I have given some hint already. The hint is, let us keep both of the mass flow rates same. So, if I call this as m1 and m2, then the equation I will write simply is m1 equals to m2. If I am trying to figure out, let us say there are 12 students in this class, what is the average marks of the student, then I will just take the total sum and divide it by the number of students. So, in the case whether I say that there are 10 students and the average is 70%, so then those marks cannot change, the total marks of the student, whether I say 7 into 7, 10 into 70 is 700 marks. So, if I add the actual marks of those 10 students, that should also come out to be 700. That is what I am trying to show over here, that whatever profile I assume, whether it is the uniform profile or the actual laminar profile, mass flow rate I am not changing. So, what is m dot 1? That I can write over here. M dot is usually given as rho. So, let me write m dot 2 first. So, now I am writing m dot 2 because it is very easy to write, isn't it? So, if the flow velocity is uniform, then mass flow rate is simply rho A into V. So, simply it is rho A into V, which means I can say density. And what is the area over here? This is the cross sectional area, right. So, this I will write as AC, cross sectional area. So, in this particular case, cross sectional area is simply pi r naught square, because the cross section of these circular pipes is a circle. And what is the velocity over here? It is V average. So, this is the value of my m dot 2, which is easier to calculate, right. That is why I have put it on left hand side. Now, let me write the expression for m dot 1. M dot 1 I cannot get directly like this, I will have to do certain integrations. Why? Because u is actually changing with r, like you can see over here. So, here I cannot write rho A into V, here I have to write rho, instead of area I have to write delta A, and instead of velocity I will write this term over here. So, u r I will take from here and put it here. So, this is a function of u r, and I am integrating for over area. Is this point clear? Okay, good. Now, what we are going to do is solve this particular thing for V average. So, this is the parameter that I want to calculate from this particular equation. So, let us go ahead and solve it. So, we can do it very easily actually, it is not difficult. So, left hand side remains same, rho AC into V average, and the right hand side, instead of integrating over area, I can integrate over radius. How do I do that? Rho, and dA I can convert perhaps. So, let me write over here that dAc, how can I write it in terms of radius? So, this is simply 2 into pi into r multiplied by differential area, radius dr. So, this is what I am going to substitute over here. So, I will get 2 pi r dr, and instead of ur, I am now going to substitute this thing over here. So, for the time being I will write ur, but later on I will substitute it. Okay. Now, I solve for V average. What do I get? I get this long integral. By the way, densities I can cancel because I am considering incompressible flow. So, density is not changing with distance or time. 2 pi will come outside of this particular bracket. So, I can write that over here is 2 pi, and by the way here if I am integrating over radius, I am integrating from 0 to r naught, and then what I get over here is r ur into dr, and I am integrating from 0 to radius, and my denominator becomes AC, and AC value I already have over here. So, instead of writing a cross sectional area AC, I can write pi r square. So, my pi also gets cancelled out. All I need to do now is substitute this thing in over here. So, let me go ahead and do that. So, our equation becomes something like this: r multiplied by V max multiplied by 1 minus r square, capital R square, dr, and 0 to r naught. So, this full integration I will leave to the students because it is very straightforward. This thing is a constant, it will come outside over here. So, what we will get ultimately, if we do this particular thing, we get very interesting result. We get simply, because all the radius will get cancelled out, V average is V max divided by 2. See how beautiful it comes out, which means that if you have a parabolic flow profile like we have in the laminar case, then the average velocity is simply half of that of the Vmax, and that I can show in this diagram as well. So, if my Vmax dot is over here, so then V average is simply half of that. I can see that over here. If this length over here, I will just take half of that, and this is how we will get the value of V average. So, this turns out to be a very nice result over here. Now, let us try and see. So, this is something that we have started with over here. We wanted to figure out what is the average velocity for a laminar flow in pipe. Now, I can ask the same question, but with additional variation in temperature as well, which means what is, again I am considering laminar flow in pipe. So, the question now I will ask is, what is the average temperature in the pipe? And then students may ask that what does average temperature mean over here. So, let me show the temperature profile. So, I am heating this fluid which is flowing inside this pipe. If inlet temperature is 10 degree, let us say it is 10 degree, the fluid enters in such a way that I can draw the temperature profile like this. So, throughout the temperature is 10, it is 10 here, 10 here, 10 here. I cannot put arrow because temperature is not a vector quantity, I cannot show direction, but this length over here, this represents the length equivalent to 10 degrees. That is what I am showing. Now, remember, we are doing heating from all the sides. So, this pipe is being heated in such a way that when this fluid exits from this point, the exit temperature is 50 degrees. That is what we wanted, right? But it cannot happen that the fluid which comes out has temperature 50 degree like this. Let me make it, if it was 10 earlier, 50 will be longer, right? It cannot be like this. And the question I will ask to student, why is this like that? So, we will figure it out in later sections, but it so happens that somewhere in between we will have a temperature profile like this. And this seems logical because near the wall, what it is showing, both sides near the wall. What does near the wall mean? Over here and over here, the temperature of the fluid actually reaches the temperature of the surface. So, this is Ts over here, this length over here is Ts. So, the temperature of the fluid will look like this, and I can draw the opposite case also. Here in the pipe we are heating the fluid. What if we were cooling the fluid? So, if I am taking the heat away from the pipe, if I am cooling the fluid, in that case what would happen? The fluid would enter, let us say over here, with temperature 30 degree. So, I will draw longer lines over here. T inlet was 30 degree and exit may be low. So, maybe it can be 0 degree over here, very low temperature. So, what will happen in between? Between the temperature profile cannot remain like, by the way, this I will cross over here because this is not the temperature profile at the exit, this is just imaginary. So, over here what will happen? The fluid near the sides will have lower temperature than that of the middle. So, here the temperature profile and it will also be reduced. So, what I will draw is like this. So, here the length we can see it is much less than, this length is less than 30 degrees over here. So, if this becomes 20 degree over here, the length of the lines has to reduce. So, I hope that point is clear to the students. Now, here how will we define this T average? So, some sort of somewhere in between we are trying to figure out. T average is that average temperature which I can assume throughout this particular radius. Now, the question is, how do I calculate the value of T average? Which trick will we use? Which balance should we use? When we wanted to calculate average velocity profile, average velocity, you remember we equated two parameters. We said m dot 1 is equals to m dot 2 because mass flow rate I cannot change, I have to keep it same. Here the energy content of the fluid I cannot change, whether the temperature profile is concave, convex or straight, I have to keep the energy content same. So, how do I do that equation? I will write E dot 1 is equals to E dot 2, which means E dot 1 is for that average temperature profile and E dot 2 is for that one where the temperature profile varies with R. and in both cases I can write it in function of m dot Cp into T average. This will be the left hand side over here. From E dot 1 I get this. On the right hand side I cannot write this expression directly, because on the right hand side temperature is now a function of R. It is varying with the, it is just like that example. If the marks in the class are varying, I cannot just take marks of one student and say that is the average marks. I have to add all of them, then divide it by the number of students in order to make sense. So, here what I have to do is I have to calculate the energy of the whole flow, and energy of the whole flow, if it is function of R, then I have to integrate. So, this is how I am going to write that expression. So, that expression is long, so I will write in the next line over here. So, mass flow rate I will convert, m dot we can always convert into rho into A into velocity. Velocity itself will be function of radius, that makes the problem even more challenging. So, how will I write that one? So, I will write it in this way, multiplied by area. So, I will maybe rearrange it in different way. I will say this is rho u into A. This is my mass flow rate multiplied by Cp multiplied by temperature variation. So, you can see there are a lot of variables which are as a function of R. Maybe I will write them with a different color, so that it becomes clear. So, u is a function of R and T is a function of R, and later on we will figure out dA also is a function of R. Rest are constants. So, this left hand side is equals to right hand side, provided we integrate over area. So, this is the equation which is going to give me the value of T average. That is what I wanted from here, that what is the average temperature profile inside the pipe. So, again this equation looks complicated, but if we integrate it, it will become very simple. And the equation that we finally get is that average value turns out to be 2 divided by V average R naught square, and this integral we have to use over here, T R U R into R d R. So, this is we have not still fully solved it, but over here now we are going to figure out how does the temperature actually varies with R. So, that we have not figured out yet, we will figure out in 2 more next sections. Once we figure it out, we will plug that value in over here, and then we will be able to solve for T average. I hope this point is clear up till over here. So, this was something that we have to figure out these expressions in order to learn what are the complicated things which are coming in the next lecture. So, this will become very interesting in next lecture. Let me define one more parameter. One is the critical Reynolds number. So, we have already looked in the earlier case that if we have laminar flow at high Reynolds number, it can also turn turbulent. So, let us see inside the pipes and tubes also what is the Reynolds number at which it becomes turbulent. So, that is Reynolds number greater than 2300. So, this is greater than sign over here. If the Reynolds number is higher than 2300, we can say that it is turbulent, and the way we will define it over here will be with the help of this diameter over here. So, we will say Reynolds number for internal flow is defined as V average, because we have to take average velocity. In reality, the velocity is a function of R. So, if you have a velocity profile over here, something like this, so which velocity we will take? We have to take the average velocity multiplied by hydraulic diameter divided by kinematic viscosity. So, this dH is the hydraulic diameter, and it is defined as 4 AC by P. So, AC is the cross sectional area and P is the perimeter. Which means for circular pipes, we can quickly do this calculation. So, hydraulic diameter will simply be 4 AC by P. For if it is a cross section circle with radius R naught. So, what is the cross sectional area? Pi R naught square, perimeter 2 pi R naught. So, a lot of things get cancelled out, we get it is R naught, which is equals to D. So, for a pipe, it turns out both the hydraulic diameter as well as the simple diameter is same. So, this is something that we have looked at just to figure out what is the definition for the critical Reynolds number and how do we use the diameter in this particular case. Now, let us start with one of the very interesting concepts, which is the entrance length. So, for this I will use this new sheet over here. Let us look at entrance length. So, ENTRANCE, entrance length. And what do we mean by entrance length? Let us see it graphically over here. So, I will draw a long pipe over here, and this is the center line over here, and I will put the coordinate systems as well. So, over here it is x axis, r axis. So, as we have seen in the previous sections related to the velocity boundary layer. So, we are talking about the velocity boundary layer. On the bottom surface, that velocity boundary layer will start to form. And students may remember what that velocity boundary layer thickness we have kept as was delta x. And what does the velocity profile inside the boundary layer look like? Maybe I will draw it over here. So, in the free stream region, it is the free, and below that then there is some sort of a curve which is shown over here. So, I think with this students will remember and link it with the previous lectures, and similarly a boundary layer will form from the top side as well. So, these both are velocity boundary layers, and this length where they actually meet, this whole zone is known as the hydrodynamic entrance region. Hydrodynamic entrance region, and this length is given as LH. So, this length over here is known as LH, and this is known as the entrance length. Once the flow has reached this particular point, any point after this section over here is known as the fully developed region. What is so important in the fully developed region is that most of the properties over here, let us talk in terms of the velocity in the x direction, its gradient with x becomes 0. In other words, if we move along the pipe, the velocity profile will still vary with r, which means it could have a parabolic profile, or for turbulent case it can have a different type of a profile. So, at any given value of x in r direction, the u velocity component can be different. But at the same r, if you go along with the x direction, once that value is fixed, at every given point of x it is fixed, which means if I draw the velocity profile over here, it looks like this. What this equation over here tells me, at this point over here, velocity profile cannot become like this. It cannot happen. What will it have to be? It will have to be the same as this one over here, exact same. In other words, we can say now the flow is not changing with x, it has fully developed, and that is what we are seeing over here, that del u by del x is 0, which means all the components of velocity we can now write simply as it will simply be a function of r, and this thing is true because of this. So, I will say because of this, we can simplify u. Instead of writing u is a function of r and x, we will simply write u is a function of r. But please remember, this is only true in the fully developed region. In this region, u is function of both r and x. Or maybe I will read the other way around, that u is a function of r and x. which means I was drawing over here. If the inlet velocity profile, usually when it flow enters the pipe, the inlet velocity profile is uniform. Sorry, because in this region over here, inlet region, there is no boundary layer because there is no pipe over there. Then when it comes over here, then between these 2 points the flow is uniform, it is a straight line like this. Then again over here it becomes tapered, and at this particular point and this particular point and this is a cross. So I am writing just we have shown other way around. Don't believe this one, this is correct and this is correct. And this entrance length expression also we can write. It turns out to be, it is very closely related to 0.05 Reynolds number times diameter. Okay. So, if I know the Reynolds number of the flow which is taking place inside the pipe, and if let us say Reynolds number is 10,000, I will just multiply it by 0.05. So, I think what I will get is 500. So, 500 times the diameter. So, if the diameter of the pipe is 1 inch, then I am looking at 500 inches. So, it could be almost like 13 or 14 feet. So, that part is all the entrance region. After that, if the pipe is long for 10, 20, 30 meter, then throughout it is fully developed. And all this thing that we are talking about in this particular slide is just for first case, which is the hydrodynamic length. So, that I will write over here. Whatever we are talking in this particular case is the hydrodynamic. And why am I calling it case 1? When we return for the next lecture, then we will do the same thing for case 2 also, and there we will talk about the thermal entrance region. So, I would encourage students before returning for next lecture, try and draw the same thing. In thermal entrance region, we will have the same pipe, but instead of drawing the velocity profile, sorry, this is the mid section point. Instead of drawing the velocity profile, what I am going to draw over here is temperature profile. How does temperature change with R and X? So, this is something that we will do in the future upcoming lecture. I think today's lecture we will stop over here, but before we stop, let us quickly look what we have done so far very quickly. So, we started off very important and interesting topic today, which is forced convection in internal flows. So, I think this is very interesting, because there are a lot of applications I had talked about, that in geysers and other places, that wherever the natural gas is being pumped in inside our body, also blood flow and air circulation, all of these are internal flows which is surrounded by some solid surface. Then we have looked at the very interesting profile, how does temperature increase with distance for the first case where the heat flux is constant. So, here this pipe given over here, we are heating it uniformly, maybe through resistive heating, and then we figured out in a simple way that this is how the temperature profile is linearly increasing, but there are so many unknowns over here. So, these unknowns are motivating us to figure out what are the details of this particular problem, so that all of these we will be able to answer in the next few lectures. Same thing we did for the second case, where instead of doing the heating with uniform heat flux, we are maybe condensing some sort of steam or other thing in such a way that it takes place at uniform temperature. Then the temperature profile we are seeing is not linear, it is rather increasing. So, we again over here, these are unknowns that we will figure out. Then we figured out how do we calculate the average velocity profile, average velocity inside the pipe, average temperature, we have looked at the expression over here, and then we have looked at the critical Reynolds number, RE critical, where the flow turns turbulent from laminar inside a pipe. And then last topic that we have looked today is the hydrodynamic region, and here we have looked at the entrance length concept of fully developed flow. So, with that I conclude this particular lecture. Once we come back next time, we will look at the thermal entrance region. Thank you very much.